When you hear about these cases on the news, they're not going to point out all the information regarding the case. They're just going to point out the information that's going to be sensationalized so that you can kind of, be swayed to sit there and listen.
You're sitting in a courtroom so tense that every breath feels loud when the judge's voice cuts through the silence. This case is dismissed. In that moment, Karmelo Anthony's parents lean into each other, holding back tears as whispers spread across the gallery. The $30 million mansion that had been at the center of fraud accusations is suddenly theirs again, a stunning reversal in a legal battle that had gripped headlines. For months, prosecutors argued that the Anthony family's lavish estate wasn't legitimate, claiming it had been tied to financial misconduct. The property, with sprawling grounds and glass-lined walls, became more than just a home. It was a symbol of the family's wealth, their power, and, according to the charges, their alleged deception. But now, the court has ruled those claims lacked sufficient proof. Attorneys for the family wasted no time declaring victory. One lawyer told reporters outside the courthouse, "This family has endured humiliation and false allegations." Today, justice corrected the record inside the courtroom. Supporters nodded, while skeptics shook their heads, unconvinced the story was that simple. The dismissal doesn't erase the months of speculation. Social media is filled with commentary, some celebrating the outcome as proof that the Anthonys were unfairly targeted, others arguing that influence and resources tilted the scales in their favor. Critics point out that winning back the mansion doesn't end questions about how the family built their fortune in the first place. What's left is a mix of triumph and suspicion. The Anthony parents walked out of court smiling, their legal team flanking them, but the air around the case hasn't cleared. For many, the dismissal feels like a victory. For others, it feels like an unanswered question wrapped in a legal technicality. And now people are left asking, was this a moment of true vindication for a family under relentless scrutiny? Or was it a reminder that wealth can sometimes tip the balance of justice? If you were in that courtroom, which way would you see it? You watch as folders and binders are gathered from the prosecution's table, the attorneys avoiding eye contact as they pack up. The case that once seemed like a bold strike against Karmelo Anthony's parents has collapsed in full view, and the $30 million mansion that had been painted as the centerpiece of fraud is now firmly back in the family's possession. For prosecutors, the downfall came from within their own evidence. Financial records that were expected to connect the Anthonys to fraudulent dealings instead revealed gaps and inconsistencies. Key witnesses faltered under cross-examination, unable to tie the family directly to the alleged misconduct. What began as a confident pursuit of high-profile convictions ended with the judge ruling that the fraud charges simply couldn't stand. The mansion itself had taken on symbolic weight. Set in an exclusive Dallas neighborhood, it became a character in the story, photographed in headlines, dissected in blogs, and pointed to as proof that the family lived beyond their means. Prosecutors leaned heavily on it, suggesting the property was the product of corruption. Defense attorneys flipped that narrative, calling it a home built through legitimate business dealings, insisting it was a monument to hard work, not deception. Outside the courthouse, reactions mirrored the divide inside. Some supporters cheered, framing the ruling as long overdue vindication. Others criticized the outcome, insisting that resources and high-powered legal representation had once again tipped the scales. On social media, hashtags praising the victory trended alongside accusations that justice had been bought. The case may be closed, but the questions are not. The dismissal gave the Anthonys their home back, but it also left a lingering debate. Did prosecutors overreach? Or did money and influence prove stronger than the law? And now people are wondering, when a family under national scrutiny walks out of court with their wealth intact, do you see a victory for fairness or a system that bends when enough pressure is applied? You're standing at the edge of a high school track meet when chaos suddenly erupts near a row of tents. Within seconds, the sound of cheering athletes fades into screams. Parents rush forward, coaches push through the crowd, and word spreads fast. A fight has broken out, and one of the students has been stabbed. That student is 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. The incident happened on April 2nd, 2024, at Kuykendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Witnesses say the altercation escalated quickly, ending with a single fatal wound. By the time paramedics arrived, Austin's injuries were beyond saving, leaving classmates and families frozen in shock. In a place meant for competition and community, the tragedy left an entire school district shaken. Karmelo Anthony, also 17 at the time, was taken into custody that same day. Prosecutors wasted no time, charging him with first-degree murder. Because Texas treats 17-year-olds as adults in criminal cases, he immediately faced the possibility of a sentence, ranging from 5 years to life if convicted. The case quickly drew national attention, not only because of the age of those involved, but because it had unfolded so publicly, in front of dozens of stunned witnesses. The Collin County District Attorney, Greg Willis, addressed the community after the indictment, saying, "We know this case has struck a deep nerve here in Collin County and beyond. When something like this happens at a school event, it shakes people to the core." His words reflected the atmosphere across the district, where fear, grief, and outrage blended into a single heavy silence. For the Metcalf family, the loss was devastating. Courtrooms and vigils alike became stages for their grief as they pressed for justice for Austin. For Anthony, the arrest was the start of a legal battle that has only grown more complicated with each passing month. And now people are asking, when violence erupts in a place meant for safety and community, how do families and students ever find a way to return to normal? You picture the moment in court when a teenager in handcuffs is led to the defense table, his head lowered as cameras click in rapid succession. That teenager is Karmelo Anthony, accused of a crime that has left his community divided. Just days after the track meet stabbing, a Collin County grand jury returned an indictment, officially charging him with first-degree murder. The indictment marked a turning point. Prosecutors laid out their case, framing Anthony as the aggressor in the confrontation that ended Austin Metcalf's life. The defense countered, suggesting the situation was more complex than the headlines implied. From that moment, the courtroom became the battleground where Austin's family sought justice, and Anthony's legal team fought for his future. On April 14th, less than 2 weeks after the incident, Anthony was released on a reduced bond and placed on house arrest. For supporters of the Metcalf family, the release was another wound, a reminder of how fragile justice can feel when the accused returns home while the victim never will. For Anthony's side, it was a critical victory, allowing him to prepare for trial outside of a cell. The decision quickly sparked debate across social media, with comments split between outrage and relief. Texas law adds another layer of weight. At 17, Anthony is considered an adult in the criminal justice system, meaning there is no shielding behind juvenile protections. If convicted, he faces a potential sentence of 5 to 99 years, or life in prison. The stakes could not be higher, and each procedural step, from bond hearings to discovery battles, has been watched closely, not just in Collin County, but across the country. And now, people are left wondering, when a teenager is charged as an adult in a case that's shaken an entire community, is the system protecting the public or putting a young life on trial with consequences far beyond repair? You're sitting in the bleachers of a high school gymnasium, the same place where pep rallies and senior nights usually fill the air with cheers. But this time, the bleachers are silent. At center court, candles flicker in front of a framed photo of Austin Metcalf, surrounded by flowers and handwritten notes from classmates. Parents clutch their children tightly, and the room feels heavy with the kind of grief that words can't soften. For the Metcalf family, every court date and public appearance has been a reminder of what they lost. Their son's absence is felt in the empty seat at the dinner table, in the unfinished plans for graduation, and in the community events where his name is now spoken only in memory. In court, their faces often reflect a quiet pain, their expressions telling a story no legal transcript can capture. At vigils, their voices tremble as they thank neighbors and friends for standing by them. The tragedy also struck a nerve across Frisco ISD. Teachers, coaches, and classmates describe the atmosphere as changed, a sense that the innocence of high school sports and events has been pierced. Parents have demanded more security at games, while administrators hold tense meetings to reassure families that stadiums are still safe places for their children. Students speak of the fear that something so final could happen at a place meant for competition, friendship, and school pride. Social media has amplified the divide. Some express sympathy for the Metcalfs, demanding accountability and justice for Austin. Others, sympathetic to Karmelo Anthony, argue that the full story has yet to be told. The back and forth has left the community polarized. with grief and anger spilling into online debates that show no sign of stopping. And now people are left wondering, when a community is forced to mourn a teenager in the same spaces where life was supposed to be celebrated, can trust and safety ever truly be restored? Or will every game, every meet, carry the weight of what happened that day? You see them walk into the courthouse, side by side, shoulders squared, cameras flashing with every step. Karmelo Anthony's parents have become almost as visible in this case as their son, their presence drawing just as much attention as the charges he faces. From defending him in court to fighting their own legal battles, they have remained constant figures at the center of the storm. Early on, their support for Karmelo was unquestioned. They appeared at hearings, often avoiding reporters' questions, but never shying away from being seen. To them, their son was a teenager thrust into the darkest of circumstances, and they vowed to stand with him no matter how high the stakes. But, while their defense of Karmelo was unfolding in one courtroom, whispers about their own financial dealings were spreading in another. Allegations of fraud, laundering, and questionable GoFundMe activity have repeatedly pulled them into headlines. Some supporters framed it as an effort to discredit the family at their most vulnerable. Critics, however, saw patterns they felt couldn't be ignored. Even their $30 million mansion became symbolic, representing either a reward for years of success or, as prosecutors once alleged, evidence of something darker. Their dual battles, defending their son and clearing their own names, have added layers of tension to an already emotional case. Every legal victory for them, like winning back their mansion, has been met with cheers from one side and suspicion from the other. And every accusation has kept the Anthony name firmly in the public eye, often overshadowing the trial itself. For the Metcalf family and their supporters, the Anthony's influence and resources raise questions about fairness. For those loyal to Karmelo, the parents are simply enduring the cost of being under a microscope. And now people are left asking, when parents become as central to the story as the accused, does it strengthen the fight for justice? Or blur the line between truth and perception even further? You picture the courtroom empty at the end of the day, the benches cleared, the papers stacked, and only the echoes of arguments and testimony left behind. Yet, outside those walls, the story of Karmelo Anthony and the Metcalf family continues to spread, carrying with it more questions than answers. The facts remain stark. A 17-year-old lost his life at a track meet. Another 17-year-old stands accused of his murder, and the families on both sides are locked in battles that reach beyond the courtroom. For the Metcalfs, it is a fight for justice and closure, a chance to give meaning to the loss of their son. For the Anthonys, it is both a defense of Karmelo's future and, as seen with their recent mansion victory, a defense of their own reputation and stability. The dismissal of fraud charges and the return of their $30 million home may mark a turning point for Karmelo's parents, but it does not erase the public divide. Supporters see them as victims of overreach, standing tall against a system eager to tear them down. Critics view the outcome as proof of privilege, evidence that resources and connections can tilt the scales when others would be crushed. Both interpretations live side by side, shaping how every development in this case is seen and debated. As for Karmelo himself, his trial looms over everything, each headline about his parents or his community adding more weight to a future already hanging by a thread. The truth, the outcome, and the justice people demand remain uncertain, and that uncertainty keeps the nation watching. And now, people are left wondering, when one family fights to reclaim their name and another fights to honor their son, which version of justice will history remember? And which side of that story would